Hey guys, it's your boy Davian. Welcome to my channel, and I want to talk about the state of the world and where we are in terms of a collective consciousness right now. The things going on socially, politically within our world. There's a reason for this, and there's a perspective to have about this as well. So if you're interested, then stay tuned. This is something that has really been a topic of conversation, obviously. Christians think that Christ is on his way back to return. The Dalai Lama is saying that he won't be reincarnating for another life cycle, which will essentially put an end to Buddhism as we know it. There's lots of social upheaval, the Black Lives Matter movement, women's equality, the LGBT movement, trans rights. There's so much activism and social calamity and social reckoning happening, and this is happening in a very aggressive, hyper techno prisoners type of way, and it's really scaring people when people are thinking that we're living in really dangerous times and that our world is falling apart and that humans aren't as loving as they used to be, and humans are more animalistic and barbaric, and that there's more of a willingness to hurt one another, to be destructive and unproductive in society. And I don't quite buy into that narrative, even though I will say there is lots of conversation, there is lots of stimulation, there is lots of moving parts on the planet, lots of things are happening, and I think we're headed toward the golden dawn. I think we're headed toward some type of age of enlightenment that is really here to help humanity to realign itself and to get back to some essential fundamental principles of life like love and liberty and unity, etc. And I'm going to unpack some of that as we deep dive into this video. Astrologists and mystics around the world will agree that we are right at the doorway of the age of Aquarius. Those of you who follow astrology, Mercury retrograde, keep up with the cosmos and star alignments and horoscope, probably have heard about the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius was also hinted to in the Bible by Jesus. He told the disciples to be looking out for this man with a pitcher of water, and this was symbolic to this age that we would be entering in which the Christ consciousness would, I guess, reemerge back into the collective whole. So a lot of people may not know what exactly is the age of Aquarius. So I pulled up this website that deals with astrology, and I'm going to read to you just a tad bit of a synopsis about the age of Aquarius, and then you'll get a deeper understanding of where we're going and why what's happening is happening. So I'm looking at my laptop, and the name of this website is spiritualgrowthprophecies.com, and it's titled The Age of Aquarius, Traits Are Building as the Next Great Age Begins. It says that the age of Aquarius is causing great turmoil in order to make room for the new values of love, brotherhood, unity, and integrity. Everything with Piscean values is being exposed and taken down. This includes governments, corporations, individuals, and even personal relationships. Many call this a disaster as the world appears to be falling apart. But is it? The Aquarian age points to the direction of our own evolution and consciousness. We are each being asked to make a choice. We can cling to old, outdated values or adopt the new, evolving ones. Our happiness and peace depends on our choice, and the change will take place whether we like it or not. So, as you guys can see right there, the age of Aquarius is really stirring shit up. It talks about governments and corporations falling apart. Look at everything happening within the White House. Look at all of the world affairs. Look at what's going on with Korea and Russia and Mexico, and all of these different political systems are being shooken and challenged and holding on by a thin thread. Look at the Me Too movement and what's happening in Hollywood, where Hollywood is now being confronted and having to face its demons. This can be a time of great fear, and like all shifts of consciousness, like all great births, like all growth, there will be growing pains. So yes, there will be bloodshed to a degree. Yes, there will be violence. Yes, there will be loss. Yes, what's familiar will be falling apart. But all of this is to bring about a healing that ultimately will be in the best interest of not simply the individual, but of the collective. And for a long time now, we as a collective body, as a humanity, as a people, we have moved and pursued our individual happiness while forsaking a collective responsibility to other. Let's just think back to gay rights and when the Supreme Court granted marriage equality to same-gender loving couples, and how society was on a pushback, especially those who have religious convictions and subscribe to organized religion. They had the biggest clapbacks and the biggest resistance to this ushering in of equality. And herein lies the point that we've walked around obtaining personal happiness for ourselves, but we have yet to really understand ourselves to be a part of one whole body, that we are one humanity, and that none of us are free unless we're all free. We're seeing social structures of all kinds being shook in gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity. All of these things are being regurgitated up to the surface because these are the ills in which we have never dealt with. These are the skeletons in America's closet. These are the skeletons in the world's closet that we've never confronted. The bigotry, the sexism, the women's oppression over in the third world, even the systematic oppression of women in the Western world, United States. You know, we're confronting, and interestingly enough, I think the verse, the last will become first, is very, very fitting. We're seeing minority groups, we're seeing the underdog come from underneath the sewers of the world and represent themselves and stand in representation and be visible. And people are understanding their own personal agency and not allowing out ideologies or allowing discrimination and prejudice to be a norm amongst the land, to be something that we just accept. What's taboo is becoming normalized and commercial. We're having conversations about things we've never had conversations about. We're more open, we're more liberated, we're more accepting of our bodies, we are more connected to our soul. We are looking and listening to music not for even lyrics or beats, but for a vibe. We are vibrational. So this generation here is kind of exposing this lacklusterness. And it's kind of getting back to the root and the basics and getting back to the fundamental idea that, look, life is just about enjoyment. You guys want us to live stale lives, get married, belong to Christianity, have a corporate job. This is not the generation for that. The generation here is breaking free from all of that. We want careers, and we want careers that are aligned with what we enjoy out of life. Not what will make us the most money, not going to school to get the degree so that we can have a financially stable future. We're wanting to take chances and take risks because we're wanting to be intimately and authentically connected to reality, not living, not making money just to live a lifestyle that's in accordance to what the language and the truth and the resonance of our soul is. We're wanting to be soulfully connected to life. And so the older generation, like my parents, our grandparents' generation, they think we're all crazy. They think we're all rebellious. They think we're a bunch of wild buffoons. What we are a people in search of actual healing. Something that they were okay not having as long as they could make it to see the next day. But now that we have the luxury of seeing the next day without it being such a struggle, we now have the time and the luxury to confront the shit that has happened in history, the things that have happened in our lineage, the things that have happened within our families. People are coming forward about sexual abuse, things that were constantly swept under the rug in families. People are having the courage and the spirit to say, this happened to me. I deserve some sense of justice. I was abandoned. I was forsaken. I was assaulted. I was left for dead, etc. We're living in a society that is seeking that justice, and this is a positive thing. But before we get to justice, we have to talk about the crimes committed against humanity. We have to talk about the crimes committed against communities. We have to talk about the crimes committed against persons in order to know what we're repenting for, in order to understand why it's necessary to change. And so we're just punching these walls down. I was talking to a friend last night, and interestingly enough, this website said that even personal relationships will be shooken and stirred, and that there will even be chaos and calamity within, I guess, your friendships and your romantic relationships. I know this to be true. I was having a conversation with a good friend, and he was saying how dating has become something that seems extinct, that, you know, dating, courting, relationships, people don't really want relationships anymore. People just want to fuck around. People want to cheat. People want to, you know, be out here playing the field, but that people don't want to really connect and bond anymore. And there's a truth to that. But I also think that the reason why we are not bonding as easily anymore is, for one, because of technology. People are able to live vicariously through a fantasy version of themselves through Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook. People are able to post the ideal portions of their lives, or post the things about their life they enjoy and that they want more of. And they're selecting and cherry picking what parts of their life they expose, because people aren't really comfortable and content and happy with what their life is and with where they are in their life and with what they've done this far with their life. They're looking for more, needing more, and unsure about how to actually accomplish that. But because of social media, we can all fantasize about that and project our personal vision of our lives onto social media, whether that's how we're living or not. And so this has caused people to be a tad bit more disconnected than the time where there was no social media. And people had no choice but to interface with each other. People had no choice but to talk to people. People had no choice but to call your phone. They couldn't send you a message on Facebook, or they couldn't send you a text message via phone. If they wanted to ask you out, they had to actually walk up to you, and they had to ask you on a date. They had to do the bold thing. They had to do the in-person thing. And so a lot of this technology has numbed us and desensitized us down to not being as hands-on with the way we engage people anymore. We engage each other from a virtual perspective, and we're not engaging anymore necessarily from here. And so I think that that's something else, though, that is going to smooth out, because we're the first generation to have the technology age. And so we're going to make all the mistakes, all the wrong mistakes, and use technology in all the wrong ways, because we're the babies. This is the first generation that has had to deal with living in a social media age, and that is trying to adapt to this and put perspective and truth to what it means to living in this age where everything is out in the open, where, you know, your life is not so much private anymore, and there's no privacy anymore, and it's about living out in the light, and it's about sharing you in this more intimate and general way to the entire world, because now you have accessibility to the public space without having to travel, without having to leave your house. You know, you can be a internet sensation. You can be an online personality and garner the attention and the support of millions and millions and millions of people all over this world. So we have that dynamic there. But we also, I believe, there's this self-corrective mechanism that's playing out in this generation, where our parents and the world that was before was a very different world. People had to really rely on one another. People had to rely on community. People had to rely on family. People had to rely on those type of unifying structures in order to have something in this life. And so people came together easily. People were willing to marry sooner. Like our grandparents and our parents didn't spend, you know, a bunch of time courting before they decided to move in together, get pregnant, have children, and, you know, just move forward. It was nothing to, you know, move in with your lover upon, you know, meeting him or her, and just hitting it off. Like, these things weren't necessarily so pushed back. But now, you know, our parents are raising us. Take your time, take your time, take your time. Get to know somebody. Don't move in ASAP. Don't get engaged ASAP. Don't marry ASAP. But they did all that, in which there was a place for that. Like I said, because people really depended on those family structures. Women depended on men in that way, financially, because that patriarchy was still very strong, and the age of millennials had not reigned in yet. And so women were still taking what was left over for them through what the men in their life had for themselves. So you went out there and found you a good man. You went out there and found you strong support. You had children, and like when my grandparents were coming up, they started working at very young ages on the farms, on the land. My grandmother was, 5 and 6 and going to the well fetching water and drying clothes, and she was, she knew how to cook by 6 and 7 years old. And so people really depended on one another. But now we're living in the age of independence, so people have more of a sense of self-awareness. People don't necessarily need, people aren't as codependent as they once were. It's going to be harder for our generation to find love, because the universe is shaking shit up in a way to make it about our healing. So while our parents and our grandparents and their parents, it may have been easy for them to find their soulmate, start a family, they also were able to bypass all of their healing, all of their trauma, all of their woundedness. And when you talk to your parents and your grandparents and people really start speaking their truth, it's really sad how you can find out some things that have happened in families and happened in marriages that would literally shock you. I have found out things about even my own mother's marriage and things she's been through in life that have literally hurt me to know. My mother is not living right now, but because she's not living, there's more information coming out about her life, and some of the things I'm just so surprised by, and I don't even know how to process and put that together. But maybe that'll be a video for another day where I'll go into all of that. But our parents and our grandparents there wasn't anybody to tell them to take care of your soul, take care of your emotional body, get clarified within all of this. Everything was about survival. Everything was about maintaining physical life. Everything was about working, taking care of the family, having a family. Things were about the right now, right here, what you can see, feel, and hear. You didn't have time to go for your dreams. You didn't have time to think about empowering yourself as a woman. You didn't have time to think about whether you was a black man playing into patriarchy and indirectly oppressing black women through that patriarchy, through those gender roles. People didn't have time to really think about that. People just had to do what they had to do, and so all these things just kind of went in over their heads. But now our generation is picking up where the previous generations left off or never arrived to begin with. Where we're at in terms of dating, where we're at in terms of why there's such a slow pace now. You may find it hard to make friends. You may find it hard to find somebody to really date who's willing to stick around and put in the effort and interest. It's all because the universe just needs you to not be fucked up going in it. Your parents were afforded the opportunity to go into their marriages unchecked. Your grandparents were afforded the opportunity to go into their marriages unchecked. You have the opportunity to not simply just obtain a relationship, but you have an opportunity to nurture a healthy relationship to yourself, which then bleeds into your romantic relationships. And not only can you say 40 years, 50 years from now, not only are me and my partner together, but we're together and we're happy. We're together and excited. We're together and healthy. We're together and functional. We're not together 40, 50 years in, but you had a baby out of wedlock on me. Or you used to beat my ass back in 1937. Or remember when you molested one of the children. Or remember when we went bankruptcy and we had to live with my parents for 5-6 years. We are in a position to take care of ourselves so that our relationships can be well. So yes, it may take a bit more effort and a bit more patience now to wait on a relationship. But the beauty in that is you get to do for you what nobody can do for you but you, which is love on you, explore you, come into you. Come into who you are. Come into why you're here. If you've been left behind, abandoned, slandered, abused, if you're broken, if you're hurt, this is your time in your single life to confront those things and bring healing and attention to those things so that you're not in a relationship paranoid, insecure, codependent, a goddamn maniac, making somebody else's life a living hell, so that you're not controlling and possessive, but you can not only be in love and be vulnerable, but you can feel safe. But you can only feel safe when you yourself have come into true healing. So I say all that to say that where we are right now, it is crazy, and it's probably going to remain crazy for quite some time, because we have to throw it all up. We've been sick as a people. We've been sick as a nation. We've been sick as a world for a long, long, long time. So all of them tapeworms, all them spiritual tapeworms, all of the spiritual poison, all of that spiritual dead skin cells, all of the spiritual toxicity within us, we got to we got to cough it up, and what comes up is going to look ugly. So people are going to be walking into school shooting shit up. People are going to be going to concerts shooting shit up. People are just going to be blowing off their kids' heads. Kids are just going to be blowing off their parents' heads. We've got to see what's really fucking wrong before we know what we need to fix. So shit is not getting bad per se, because humanity has just lost it. And there's no hope for tomorrow, or no hope for the world. We're just going through a great childbirth. We are really giving birth to wisdom. We're giving birth to love. But we got to know how off kilter we are, and we've got to see what we're willing to do to one another, and see what we're doing to one another, in order to know that we're really not as together as we have liked to believe we are, and that we don't really love the way that we think we do as followers of God, and we don't really stand up for the right thing as much as we think that we do. We hide when it comes time to really step up. We look for other people to step up rather than take the opportunity ourselves to impact our world and to stand up for what we believe is right. So I want you guys to stay encouraged. I want you guys to definitely get into astrology. Everything that has ever happened in this world has been written in the stars and has been documented from an astrological point of view. Astrology is really the hieroglyphics of the sky. Just like the hieroglyphics on the pyramids tell a story, the stars, the constellations are a message, a divine message to humanity. Just be encouraged. There's a great shift, a beautiful shift that's going on, and it is going to get ugly, but just stay prayed up, stay in alignment, and know that this is the time in your life to not only stand for your healing and to find your healing, but to help other people come into their own healing. Because for a long time, we have marginalized people, we have oppressed people, we have counted people out, we've counted the gays out, we've counted women out, white people have counted black people out, we've counted the foreigners out. This is the time now to recognize that we as a humanity have some terrible, terrible character traits. And if we continue to perpetuate those traits and those qualities, there is going to be a World War III. There is going to be great calamity. There is going to be much violence in the world. So we're trying to correct all that. The universe is trying to correct all that and give us an opportunity to see a ugly reflection of ourselves, but an honest one still. It's ugly, but it's honest. And to see it calls for responsibility. So I will leave this link to this particular website about the Age of Aquarius in the description bar below. Guys, share this video, comment, rate, subscribe. Thank you guys for supporting me, and I'll talk to you guys later.